Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a video that I'm quite excited about. I'm going to be doing my favorite spooky reads video. This is basically going to comprise of a bunch of books that I've read that I love because they're horror related, they're spooky, on some level they are spooky. And basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to do it on like a spookometer, like a scarometer, and I'm going to go with like the most tame to like the true horror books. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. If you're not necessarily a huge horror fan, you can pick up something a little tamer and you know, you'll still be okay. So yes, this is what I'm doing. I'm really excited, and before I begin I just want to show you my boyfriend's, you know, a vampire, just so you know, and I'm referring to Spike, not Edward. Alright, I really don't have too much else to say, so let's go ahead and get on into it. The first book that I have to mention is Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and I could really mention any Neil Gaiman book and that would really work for this category, but Coraline is what introduced me to Neil Gaiman and a lot of people to Neil Gaiman, and it's definitely, in my opinion, the creepiest. Coraline follows a young girl named Coraline Jones, and she has just recently moved into a new apartment building. Quickly upon arriving, she's just really bored. She doesn't know what she's gonna do with herself. She's moved from a big city to a small town and there's nothing for her to do. So naturally, Coraline goes exploring the apartment that she and her parents just moved to, and she discovers that through a tiny little door in the living room, there's a whole other world. In this world, everything is the same, but at the same time, everything is different. Her mother and father look the same, they sound the same, but they don't act the same, which leaves Coraline to refer to them as her other mother and other father. At first, this new world is so glamorous, it's so wonderful, it's everything that Coraline wants, but not too long after, Coraline discovers that there are some dark secrets to this new magical world, and it is certainly not everything that she thought it was. This is a fantastic book. It is a children's book, so it is, like I said, a bit more tame, but at the same time, it still delivers, and I would definitely recommend it to you if you're looking for a spooky little read this Halloween. The next book I want to mention is Horns by Joe Hill. This book follows a young man named Ignatius Parrish, and Ig has recently been arrested from the murder of his girlfriend. However, Ig was acquitted, but that does not keep everyone around him from thinking that he is the murderer and treating him as such. A year after his girlfriend's death, Ig begins to experience this strange phenomenon when he wakes up one day and finds horns spouting from the top of his head. Now with these horns also comes magical abilities, but they're really not all they're cracked up to be. What happens is that when Ig comes in contact with a person, they immediately unload their deepest, darkest secrets to him. They tell him the blunt truth about everything. And considering his current situation, that's not the greatest superpower to have. I read this last Halloween wanting something really scary, but this was not totally scary. It was more of like a witty, funny, at times very sad, but just overall really enjoyable read. There were a couple of creepy parts in it, don't get me wrong, and I do want to give a trigger warning to those of you who have issue reading things about sexual assault. But overall, this book is what I would consider tame in the horror genre, and it's just, to me, it was a lot more than just a slashery type of read, which sometimes I do enjoy partaking in those, but sometimes you want something a little bit deeper, and I picked this up not knowing that that was what I was going to get, but being really happy that I did. The next book that I want to talk about is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I think that it goes without saying that this is definitely what popularized vampires and what got it out there and got people knowing about it and reading about it. Now, I read this book a few years ago during college. It was the first time that I had ever picked it up, and I was really looking forward to it because my love for horror goes all the way back to when I was a little kid, so I had always wanted to pick up Dracula. Dracula follows a young man named Jonathan Harker, and he has recently gone on a bit of an expedition across the country to Transylvania, where he is trying to sell Count Dracula's house. Upon arriving, Jonathan realizes that Dracula is not just a quirky, kooky old man. He's actually very dangerous, and Jonathan realizes this whenever he becomes a captive of Dracula's. This is Gothic Horror 101, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed studying it, enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed pretty much everything about it. There were some parts that were a little drawn on and a little, you know, what you would expect when reading a chunky classic like this, but overall, the descriptions and the prose and everything, it was lovely. And I would definitely recommend this to you if you're looking to get into something a little bit darker, a little bit scarier. The next book is actually a new book that I have just recently read, and I loved it so much. It is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This book follows two sisters who are the only remaining members left of the Blackwood family apart from their uncle Julian. The reason that their family is no longer there is because they were murdered one night at dinner, a crime which Constance was put on trial for but was eventually acquitted for. That doesn't keep the townspeople from hating the Blackwoods and hating everything that Constance and Mary Cat and Uncle Julian represent. It's another eerie sort of read. It's not horribly horror, but it definitely satisfies. I love this book so much. The writing was incredible. I'm going to be doing a book review on it very soon, and I would definitely recommend picking this one up. If you want a book that is going to completely transport you to another world and surround you with this gothic horror atmosphere, this is what you want to go for. And if you also want to get into classics, this is so easy to read. It's so short, and I would definitely recommend it. So I'm getting into a little bit creepier now, and the next book I'm going to mention is actually my first young adult book apart from Coraline, and it is The Devouring by Simon Holt. This is actually a trilogy, and this is the first in the trilogy, and it follows a teenage girl named Reggie. Now Reggie is a huge horror fan. She and her friend Erin love horror movies. They love scaring people, scaring each other. They also love telling scary stories, and one of the stories that they love to tell to Reggie's younger brother Henry are of the Vors, which are these evil spirits that inhabit people's bodies during the winter solstice. Reggie just thinks this is all fun and games. She's just out there to, you know, creep her little brother out, have a little fun. But what she doesn't realize is that by bringing the story of the Vors out, she is actually bringing the Vors out, and one of them takes over Henry's body, and she is left having to deal with the consequences of that. This is a great little YA thriller slash horror. I really enjoyed it, and it was pretty scary. It was good. It was really good, and I don't know why more people don't talk about this series because I really enjoyed it. And the final book that I'm going to mention is Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. This is my holy grail, holy crap, scary, spooky book that I'm going to talk about. And the reason why I think that this book is so great and so scary is because if you did not know, Red Dragon is the first book in the Hannibal Lecter series. Yes, that Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs, and a lot of people don't realize that it's a series and that this is the first book. Red Dragon follows a recently retired FBI agent who was the detective who famously captured Hannibal Lecter, but in doing so, he nearly died. Understandably, he wants to quit the force, he wants to be with his family, he wants to be safe, so he retires, moves to Florida, takes care of his family, and wants to be completely done with the force. Several years later, the FBI contacts Will because a series of familiar serial killings have been going on. However, they are not by Hannibal Lecter. He is still behind bars, but this is sort of a copycat type of murderer, a murderer who kills his victims in very similar ways and just has the force feeling like this is something familiar, this is something scary, and this is something that only Will can help them with. So with a bit of persuasion, Will agrees to go back into it and help the FBI hunt down the infamous Tooth Fairy, which is the name of this murderer. If you want something genuinely scary, genuine horror, real life, scary psychological stuff, this is what you should go for because it'll do it for you. For reals. Alright guys, so that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. In the comments below, I'd really love to know what some of your favorite spooky reads are because you know that's my jam. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to talk about. So let's start discussing. Alright guys, so that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one.